Hey everyone, welcome to the Kutztown Christian Fellowship podcast. This week we will be looking at God's reversal in the book of 1 Samuel. In this talk, Dave Royce will be walking us through 3 points: the absent word of the Lord, the piercing word of the Lord, and the established word of the Lord. So, open your Bible to 1 Samuel chapter 3 verse 1 to chapter 4 verse 1, and let's get started.
So by far, I think my favorite time of year would be the springtime. I don't know if it's because I was raised in Jamaica or something, but it's sort of warm all the time there. Right about this time of year, I get a little antsy. Sometimes I get a little angry when we have days like yesterday. And I get really, really sick and tired of the cold. And I have this longing for warm weather and springtime. I learned this week that my children have inherited my love of warm weather. Remember, because it snowed on, was it Monday, and then it snowed again on Wednesday, and it was like a train wreck of a week for weather. So no offense if you like the winter, but I was standing at a glass door looking outside. It was snowing again this week, and one of my kids looked outside and longingly said the following: "Daddy, when is God going to make it happy outside again?" And I'm like, you're right. It was terrible outside. I didn't disagree. We see eye to eye. Everything outside feels sort of sad. Walking around feels sad. The trees, they just kind of look sad. My grass, which normally looks sad, looks extra sad. And my garden where I grow things, that looks really sad. And every day, my family, if you're a Royce anyway, we long. We're like, when is it going to happen? When's there going to be, and we even refer to it as a happy reversal. We're like, God, please bring the reversal. Please turn things around. That's springtime. We love it. It's when everything is sort of going one way, and then we're like, man, happiness one day just bursts out of the ground. There are flowers, people are doing backflips, everyone's singing. That's the spring. It's the season of joy, at least for me. And no offense if you hate the winter. But the way I feel about the springtime, the way my family longs to see things turn around, is in many ways how the author of 1 Samuel wants you to feel when you pick up the book. I'm serious. When you read this book, we're going through this book. It's an Old Testament book, and many of us sort of ignore this book. But what you need to know about it is that 1 Samuel offers us, and it is presenting to us, the history of God's people. And it's happening in one of the darkest times, one of the saddest times in the history of Israel. God's people, in terms of history lesson, they're in the promised land, but it's winter. I don't mean it's winter. I mean it's sad. I mean it's winter. I mean spiritually it's winter. There's no king. Everyone's just sort of doing whatever they want. And the nation, you can think of it. You could use the illustration of winter. You could use the illustration of sadness. You could also just say it's a barren place. And the question that hangs over this book, the question that we should ask, that the emotional context of 1 Samuel is, when is God going to make it happy again outside? We're in the promised land, but really what we need is we need renewal. We know something is wrong. Somehow things have to turn around. That's the cry of the book. Please, I need a change. I need a reversal. That's 1 Samuel. And it's very relatable. It's very understandable, because isn't that the cry you hear in our culture all the time as well? Maybe you felt that way. Maybe your heart felt that as you listened to Cassie's testimony a while ago. But people often look down and they're like, man, I need renewal. People think I need things to change in here. I don't like the direction my life is going. That's why people make New Year's resolutions. That's why people talk about revolutions. That's why Christians pray for revival. It's just a thing. And in our passage, what we're going to encounter tonight is God's revival. What we're going to read tonight is what happens when everything seems to be careening towards sadness. What does the Lord of the universe do? God is actually in the business of bringing reversal, revival, renewal. ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli. And the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim, so that he could not see, he was lying down in his own place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. And the Lord called Samuel, and he said, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I didn't call, lie down again." So he went and he lay down. And the Lord called again, "Samuel." And Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I didn't call, my son, lie down again." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. Verse 8, and the Lord called Samuel again the third time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." And then Eli perceived that the Lord was calling the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, "Go, lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant hears.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And the Lord came and stood calling the other time, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant hears." And the Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I am about to do a thing in Israel, at which the 2 ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. On that day I will fulfill against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house from beginning to end. And I declare to him that I am about to punish his house forever for the iniquity that he knew, because his sons were blaspheming God, and he did not restrain them. Therefore I swear to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever." Samuel lay until morning, and he opened the doors of the house of the Lord, and Samuel was afraid to tell the vision to Eli. But Eli called Samuel and said, "Samuel, my son." He said, "Here I am." And Eli said, "What was it that he told you? Don't hide it from me. May God do so to you and more also if you hide anything from me, all of that he told you." So Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. And he said, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him." And Samuel grew. And the Lord was with him. And he let none of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again at Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord. And the word of Samuel, it came to all Israel. That's our passage for tonight. There are a lot of things that we could say about that passage. But I want you to take in and to notice, I think the most important thing to realize about that passage is big picture, how it begins and how it ends. Look at verse 1. The way it begins, chapter 3, verse 1, says that the word of the Lord was rare. That's an interesting, very sort of sad verse. But I want you to see in chapter 4, verse 1. Or the last verse that I read, it says, "And the word of Samuel came to all Israel." So big picture, you need to realize that the mood of this passage starts in sadness. The mood of this passage starts in sadness, but the mood of this passage ends in hope. At the beginning, there is scary music. At the end, there is hopeful, triumphant music. Do you see that? Translation, what do you make of a passage like this? This is a text about God bringing a happy reversal. This is a text about God fulfilling what Hannah prayed in chapter 2. This is a text about what God is going to do about the fact that chapter 1, Hannah's barren, and the nation is barren. So what does God do? Here's the answer. God, the sovereign king, brings about a reversal. And the instrument of his reversal is his word. That's what our passage is screaming at us. Let me say that again. This is saying that God, who is the great king, is going to look at his nation and bring about a reversal or a revival. But always remember that the instrument of revival is his word. That's how revival breaks out in the nation of Israel. Let me walk you through it. Look at your handouts. The first thing that we see, Act 1, is the absent word of the Lord. Remember, mood is sadness. Look at verse 1. Mood is sadness. There are fewer sadder verses in the Bible. Now the young man Samuel was ministering to the Lord under Eli, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. We got two characters that you should see. Samuel, who the book is named after. Samuel, you can think of him, he is a young boy. Imagine him as an intern. He's a church intern. And the other character is Eli. Eli and Samuel. Eli is a priest. He is the senior spiritual leader among God's people. So, that's the setup, but the author is giving you an important editorial comment. It says not only that these two dudes are ministering in the temple, but he says this is the state of Israel right now. And here it is, the word of the Lord was rare and there was no frequent vision. What's he saying? He's saying people in this climate, not only is the nation barren, not only is Hannah barren, but people aren't thinking about God. People don't give a rip about God. The word of the Lord was rare. It's not talked about. It's not read. There's no frequent vision. People aren't hearing from God. People's minds are just not on God. Okay? Now, immediately after saying that, look at verse 2. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he couldn't see, was lying down in his own place, and the Lamb of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. Right after referencing the lack of God's word in the nation of Israel, the author mentions the abundance of darkness. That's an important thing to see. Right after saying the word of the Lord was rare, he's going to go on to tell you, circumstantially, literarily, and things were dark. See, on one hand, there's no frequent vision. See the wordplay? On the other hand, Eli's eyesight is dim. That's significant. That's a deliberate literary wordplay. On one hand, the word of the Lord was rare. On the other hand, it says the lamp of the Lord had not yet gone out. That's another way to say it's nighttime. And what he's leading you to understand is what I put on your sheets. I think it seems to me the author is saying, listen, unless God speaks, people are in darkness. There's always a connection in the Bible between God's silence and people's darkness. All the time. And we see that here. And unless God, do you know this, opens up his mouth and chooses to reveal or to communicate, people are in big trouble and they are in darkness. We're teaching one of my kids to speak right now. Teaching one of your children to speak is really fun because there's a way to do it. I'm going to teach you how to teach a kid to speak, right? Here's what you do. You get down on their level, and they can hardly say anything. And usually you get something, maybe you get an object, maybe you get a ball, maybe you get a cookie, and you wave it in front of them, and you look them in the eye, and you say, see this? Cookie. That's how you teach a kid to speak. And you do it over, and they try to say, you're like, no. Cookie. And then they eventually say cookie, and you're like, yes, that's how you do it. And I didn't do that, I didn't follow that because I'm a dad, and that's just what I do. But here's the truth about children. And I don't know if you ever realized this, but the only way that my kid is ever going to learn to speak is if I speak to them. Or someone speaks to them. The only way that a person is going to grow up and have words is actually if words are given. If people speak words into them, and if that does not happen, if I don't speak, what a terrible idea to think about as a parent. If I don't actually speak to this child, they will have no words. They won't mature properly. Things will go wrong and they won't be able to function, and it will be a very, very, very sad place. And that's what's happening here. That's what our story is communicating, is that darkness imagery is happening because God's word is absent, and that's a sad day. Sadness is not caring about a revelation from God. Sadness is not giving a rip about God. Look at the top of your sheets. There was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. People deciding that they're only going to listen to themselves. That's what the context of Samuel is. That's the end of the book of Judges leading up to 1 Samuel. That's why it is dark in the nation. And if you are here and you long to see a change in your life, see, if you want revival, if you want reversal, first you have to decide, well, what is wrong with the world and what is wrong with me? You have to answer that question. What's wrong with the world? Well, according to the Bible, It's not that people lack knowledge and they need education. It's not that people lack food and they need nutrition, although those are fantastic things. The thing that is wrong, and perhaps wrong if you sense darkness, is that people lack truth. And they've decided to live apart from what is true. The Bible calls that sin. Ignoring God. God, forget about you. I'll do what I want, thank you very much. Do you know that if you do that, your life will be dark? I want to read to you a quote from a leading scientist at NASA who has recently declared that he's an atheist. He doesn't want anything to do with this God nonsense, and he's one of the smartest people on the planet. Listen to what he has to say about life. One day I am going to die and forever cease to exist. The universe too faces a death of its own, and science tells us that the universe is expanding and galaxies are growing farther and farther apart. And it does this, as it does this, it grows colder and colder, and its energy is being used up. Eventually, all the stars are going to burn out, all the matter will collapse into dead stars and black holes. There will be no light at all, there will be no heat, there will be no life, only the corpses of dead stars and galaxies. And this will be ever expanding into the endless darkness and cold recesses of space. It will be a universe in ruins, he goes on. This is not science fiction. The entire universe marches irreversibly towards its grave. And so not only is the life of each individual person doomed, but the entire human race is doomed. And I quote, "The universe is plunging towards inevitable extinction, and death is written throughout its structure. There is no escape, and there is no hope." End quote. Woo! That's one of the smartest men on the planet. But what's happened there is he has said, I have no room for God. I don't have any space in my life for revelation or a vision. And I want you to realize that if that happens, this is what is left. Life is dark. And the sun's going to swallow the earth. So if you're here tonight, and you long for a change in your life, and you're like, why is my life so dark? What is going on in the world? What does our campus need? I read the news and I'm scared. It could be because you ignore what God has said. Or that the word of the Lord is just rare in your life. You actually don't have room for what God has said. And if that is you, there's such good hope. There's such good news because there's a second point. Look at what happens next. On your outline, you see the piercing word of the Lord. First, the mood is sadness in Act 1, but I need you to see here that second act of our passage, the mood is surprise. It moves from sadness to surprise. Verse 4, then the Lord called Samuel. And he said, here I am. He ran to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. But Eli said, I didn't call. Lie down again. And so he went and he laid down. Sadness is Act 1. Surprise is Act 2. And there is a little bit of a cute irony going on, by the way, here, because it's not immediately obvious. That Lamb of God that has not gone out reference in verse 3, the Lamb of God is something that burns from sundown to sunrise. It means it's dark. It means it's nighttime. The Lamb of God is not yet gone out, means its sun hasn't risen yet, but this is arranged almost masterfully to time sunrise with when God speaks. And what happens is, in the Bible, God's word is always equated with light. That's why people go on to write, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. What happens in this passage is God's word pierces into a scary time. That's how God turns it around. Look on your outlines. God speaks, and he speaks first. This is important. Verse 4 says, and the Lord called Samuel. If you're reading the story responsibly, what you should say is, who called God? The answer is nobody. But if you think about it, if you or I were writing the story, we'd be like, hey, Eli and Samuel were like, things are dark, let's have a prayer meeting. And maybe God will do something. And we would probably write that because we're kind of used to humans being the hero in our stories. You know what I'm talking about? But there really aren't any heroes in this story, humanly speaking. Man, look at the high priest. Even the godliest man in Israel doesn't seem to know when God's talking. Man in this passage, make no mistake about it, friends, for in the Old Testament, this is deliberate. Man in this passage is not seeking after God. They didn't hold a prayer meeting. Everybody in this nation seems to basically be one obscene gesture towards God. Even the godliest man, at his best, is a dim flicker of an old man who can't even see straight and whose sons are rascals. And if you think the God of the Old Testament is not a God of grace, you should read verse 4 again. Because it says God comes and he calls people. Our God speaks. Like a dad who buys a cell phone for his rebellious kid, who wants nothing to do with him. Why would you do that? Like a dad who buys a cell phone for a rebellious kid, God takes the initiative to talk to people. He longs to communicate with them. God makes the first move, and what he is doing is he's establishing a prophet to roll back the darkness in this season of God's people. And that's a God of grace. Because God speaks first. Second thing you see, God speaks persistently. If you thought verse 4 was gracious, look at verse 6. And the Lord called out again, Samuel. Again means in Hebrew, again. Got it? You can actually translate the word even still. God called. Even still, God called. And Samuel arose and went to Eli. Look at verse 7. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. Verse 8. And the Lord called Samuel again the third time. Seeing the textual emphasis. Verse 10. And the Lord came and stood calling. This is absurd. Do you see the progression? There's a deliberate emphasis. Make no mistake about it. God is the hero of this passage. God is the faithful one in this passage. That's why you get that random insertion in verse 7 that says Samuel didn't even know God. Don't mistake it. Samuel's not the hero. God doesn't just call out to people in darkness. God persistently calls out to people in darkness. And please note that the breakthrough moment, the turning point in the whole nation of Israel right now is when Eli realizes, wait a minute, it's God. And maybe we should actually, listen. That's the breakthrough moment. The turning point in this passage is verse 10, where all of a sudden the attitude shifts from speculation and surprise to verse 10, speak for your servant hears. And I want to suggest to you that's how revival breaks out. That's how change is provoked. That's when the ship starts to turn. That's when the darkness is rolled back. When people, all of a sudden, stop talking, stop speculating, stop wondering, I wonder if God is like this. I like to imagine God like this. You know what? I kind of like to think of God like that. Why would God be like that? You know what the answer is? Shut up. And listen to God. Shut up, like close your mouth and tune what God has said about himself. What if God has chosen to reveal himself? That's what this passage is saying. There's plenty of speculation in darkness. People in darkness love to guess and to think about what they think God is like, and God has removed that option from you because he speaks first, he speaks persistently, third, God speaks truthfully. And this is somewhat scary, verse 11. What are you going to hear if you listen? Well, the Lord said to Samuel, behold, I'm about to do a thing in Israel, the 2 years of everyone who hears it will tingle. I'm going to fulfill against Eli all that I've spoken. Did you have to say, God, that's kind of awkward. Samuel's like, you want me to say that to Eli? I'm a mentor. It's uncomfortable. That's what God has to say. See, the content of God's communication here is actually one of judgment. And this is important. God's word breaks through, and the content of God's word is a rebuke. It's not a comfort, it's a rebuke. Rebuke is a strange word as Christianese. This morning, various ones of you, I am sure, probably all of you, a part of your morning routine, you know what you did? You woke up in the morning, maybe you're like me, you roll out of bed. One of the things that you do very importantly every single morning is there's this thing hanging on the wall in the bathroom. You go and you take a gaze and you look in the mirror. Your mirror rebukes you. That's the function of a mirror. A mirror, its function is not to reflect to you what you wish is there. It reflects to you what is actually there, and that's why a mirror is useful. It highlights for you, it reflects to you, and it offers you a very, very helpful rebuke. I'm very thankful for mirrors because I need a lot of rebuke in that department. And friends, God's word is like that. God here is speaking. And very, very clearly, what's abundantly clear in this text is that God does not say what people wish he would say. God is not speaking in a wishful, maybe wishy-washy way. God is bringing truth and speaking truth to Eli, who is perhaps not leading like he should. And that's why it is a word of judgment. It is a harsh word, but it is a good word. It is a necessary word if darkness is to be rolled back. And my guess is that it's easy for you to think about, I want to hear from God. It's easy to think of that in, God's going to tell me what I want to hear. Actually, you should be suspicious if God tells you what you want to hear, just so you know. Remember when I did premarital counseling? Not did premarital counseling. When I was going through premarital counseling, when I was engaged to my now wife, we did premarital counseling. And I honestly did premarital counseling. And in my heart, I wanted to get together with an older couple and basically show them how awesome I was, right? It was so arrogant. It was so arrogant. I remember still distinctly meeting with some dear friends of ours, and they said, Dave, you think marriage is going to be easy? And they reflected to me like a mirror some of my stupid bachelor ways, which they thought, this is actually going to be really frustrating for Megan when you guys get married. You should think about that. And I left and I was so ticked off. How dare they actually share something with me like that? You know why? It upset me, because it was true, right? But see, in human hearts, maybe you're similar. Well, we naturally want to listen in order to be affirmed. That's why we usually try to listen. But if you want change, if you actually want to have an encounter with the living God, you need to actually learn to listen for what is true, for what is there, not what you wish to be there. Listen in a way that submits. And I would ask you, is that the way that you